25 UN Chemicals, Waste, and Pollution negotiations. My name is Shannon Lisa, and I'm one of the global focal points of the Chemicals and Waste Youth Platform. And I'm joined here by several of our coordination team and constituency members who you will be meeting soon and who will be moderating different parts of the program that we've prepared for you today. We're really excited to see so much energy and growing youth leadership in this space. Over the last few years, we've witnessed incredible momentum in global youth movements on climate action and biodiversity. And now we are building that same urgency, visibility, and collective voice when it comes to chemicals, waste, and pollution. And today's briefing is for all young people. Together, we will strengthen our shared understanding of what negotiations. We will learn from our distinguished guests who represent key UN processes addressing chemicals, waste, and pollution, including the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Conventions, the Minamata Convention on Mercury, the Global Framework on Chemicals, the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee on Plastic Pollution, and the Science Policy Panel Open-Ended Working Group Secretariats. Thank you for making time to be here with us and for being champions of youth engagement in your respective processes. After each segment, there will be space for interaction and Q&A with our speakers, so we encourage you to share your questions and reflections throughout the session in the Q&A box or by raising your hand during those interactive segments. I am now honored to introduce you to Mr. Ludovic Bernadat, who is the head of the Knowledge and Risk Unit within the Chemicals and Health branch of the UN Environment Program, or UNEP, who is our opening speaker, and he will be giving us some context on the significance of this year's chemicals and waste negotiations and how UNEP has been working to advance global awareness and efforts on pollution. Welcome, Ludo. Over to you.
Thank you, Shannon. And it's a pleasure to be opening this very important discussion today. As you said, youth implication is really important, especially in pollution. And but it's also interesting every time to speak in to the youth groups when you yourself have left that group quite a while back. But I won't reflect on that. What I wanted to say is that the triple planetary crisis of biodiversity loss, climate change, and pollution requires coordinated action from all stakeholders, and most importantly, youth groups. And this is particularly true for the pollution crisis, as you mentioned, Shannon. Pollution is often insidious and invisible. Hazardous chemicals are present around us in many of the consumer products we use every day, but few in the public know the extent of the issue. And although it's true that a few of these chemicals have made the headlines in recent past, I take PFAS as an example, the majority of the population doesn't know about the rest. Addressing pollution through a chemical by chemical approach hasn't been as successful as originally thought, with several examples of regrettable substitution to attest for that. Therefore, we need more holistic approaches. We need to rethink our consumption patterns, redesign the production of goods to use green and sustainable chemistry, to ensuring circularity, and to ensure minimize impact throughout value chains. The youth groups are a key stakeholder in this shift. They bring new ways of approaching the issues, especially on communication. They can approach more people. They can promote innovation and influence consumption at a large scale. And also, the youth of today will be affected longer than we are by the impact of biodiversity loss, climate change, and pollution, and have an inherent higher stake in ensuring change happen now rather than tomorrow. As you mentioned, Shannon, this year again is a heavy agenda for the pollution area. A lot of it is also resulting from unfinished business from previous years. We will be talking very soon on the main meeting on the Basel, Stockholm, and Rotterdam Conventions Conference of the Parties. But then it doesn't stop here. We continue expanding with the work on the science policy panel with a hopeful adoption towards the end of June. Taking stock of the progress we have made on the global framework on chemicals the following week, which is very important because all the changes that we try to make in value chains are really embedded in this global framework on chemicals. Then we'll go on to continue and finalize the negotiation for the plastic treaty, and the year will close with the Minamata Convention Conference of the Parties. So again, a very full year for us, and we're looking forward to engaging with all of you. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Ludo, for those thoughtful opening words and also for UNEP's continued support of youth engagement in this space. And we're so glad to have you with us on this meeting today. I'd now like to pass the floor to Ms. Lizelle Vincent, who is the Chemicals and Waste Youth Platform's Community Building and Outreach Lead, to give us a short overview of the timeline of chemicals, waste, and pollution negotiations in the UN this year, and to share with you how the Chemicals and Waste Youth Platform engages young people in these policymaking processes. Over to you, Lizelle, and I'll share your slides now.
Thank you, Shannon and Ludo, for that wonderful introduction to everything. I'll continue on the introduction, as Shannon mentioned, with a quick overview of everything. So I'm Lizelle Vincent. I'm originally from Trinidad and Tobago and currently based in New Jersey in the United States. And as Shannon remembered, I'm an administrative team member of the Chemicals and Waste Youth Platform. So once Shannon, have you shared these slides yet?
Sorry, just working that out now, having a little technical difficulty with sharing the slide.
No worries. It's early morning for us here, and so that's expected. So while she's pulling that up, I could go ahead and start. So the Chemicals and Waste Youth Platform is made up of more than 2,000 children, youth, and youth-led organizational members from over 150 countries. We are the dedicated civil society youth constituency facilitating the engagement of young people in this thematic area in the United Nations system, and are the largest global youth network specifically focused on policy, advocacy, and action to address chemicals, waste, and pollution. I'm not sure if these slides are up yet. I can't see them on my screen.
Yeah, just about 10 seconds away, Lizelle. Sorry about that.
So yeah, I'll just pause for a bit here just because the next slide, I really want you all to see the content of the slide. So yeah. Wednesday morning blues.
Okay, the Gen team's getting that pulled up now for you, Lizelle, because I'm having a little bit of issues sharing on my end. So thank you all for your patience. This is what we do in the youth space. We problem solve together. So that's a good little taste of what the rest of the year will look like.
I love that. And that is very true. There's a lot of things that still need to be figured out, and the youth are here to support with making things work. I guess while we're waiting on these slides to come up, I would love to see where everybody's from. So if you want to put in the chat where y'all are from, I think that would be a great way to start letting us get an idea of where everybody's coming in from this morning, if it's middle of the day, if it's nighttime for y'all. Yeah.
And
Okay.
there we go, Lizelle. Slides are up now. Maybe if you want to start from the beginning again, just so everybody can see it
Um,
on the screen.
yeah, so this one was
Appreciate it.
pretty much stated. Yeah, so membership, we have 2,000 children, youth, and youth-led organizations. We have representatives from over 150 countries, and we are a dedicated civil society youth consistency, facilitating the engagement of young people in the chemicals and waste and pollution thematic area of the United Nations system. Next slide, please. So the Chemicals and Waste Youth Platform is one of 8 youth environment constituencies in the UN system. And so you can see those 8 constituencies on the screen here, along with the year that they were formed and their meetings and calendar and focal point. So each of these constituencies has their own membership and is independent of one another, but they regularly collaborate on cross-cutting processes and themes. The constituencies have similar governance structures, with decision-making being directed by the views and positions of the membership, as well as a coordination team and global focal points that support day-to-day functioning of the constituencies' work. The Chemicals and Waste Youth Platform also runs similarly to this. And we serve as a convening space for youth organizations that are accredited to one or more of our core engagement processes, which include the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Conventions, the Minamata Convention, and the Global Framework on Chemicals. We further engage broader youth, individuals, and informal grassroots youth groups to expand access to policymaking processes on chemicals and waste beyond only organizations that have the ability to become formally accredited. Next slide, please. So our membership is open to any and all youth from around the world who are interested in chemicals. And I believe youth is people who are 36 and under. So we're still all young for a long time. And so as an individual youth, you can join the constituency by filling out the membership form on your screen, where you'll be looped into the constituency's mailing list and communications channel. And so you can take a picture of this QR code on the screen, and that will take you directly to the membership form. And just keep an eye on it. The membership form is internally, we call it the purple form. And if you go to the next slide, this here is our form for a youth-led or youth-serving organization. And as you see, this is internally the orange form. And so this is for if you're joining as part of an organization. Once again, the QR code is on here. Next slide, please. Thank you. And so in this meeting, we're going to hear from representatives of each of the core chemicals, waste and pollutions negotiations bodies, right? But before that, we want to look at just like the timeline, just get an idea of the negotiation processes this year. And in just under 2 weeks, the youth constituency will be on the ground for the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Convention conference of the peak parties in Geneva through May 9th. This will be followed by back-to-back negotiations in Uruguay in June on the Science Policy Panel and Global Framework on Chemicals open-ended working groups. Next slide. And then later in August, there will be the second part of the 5th session of the Intergovernmental Negotiation Committee to develop a global plastics treaty. And this will also be in Geneva. And finally, in November, we have the Minamata Convention's 6th conference of the parties, also in Geneva. So we will hear from a representative for each of these processes in the following segments to tell you more about what their objectives are and what to expect in negotiations in 2025. We will also share more about how to get engaged in the constituency's activities around each of these processes later on in the briefing. So thank you all for listening. Hope to see you all in some of our upcoming events. And I will now pass the floor on to Anpo Jensen to moderate our first segment with the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm and Minamata Secretariats. Thank you.
Good morning, everyone. My name is Anpo Jensen. I'm from Pioneer, South Dakota. I am an Indigenous youth. I'm from the Oglala Lakota Nation and located in the US, and I am also an Indigenous scientist. I will be your moderator for this segment focused on multilateral environmental agreements that anchor global efforts to manage hazardous waste and chemicals. We are honored to welcome Ms. Maria Christina Cardenas Fischer from the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Convention Secretariat, and Ms. Monica Stinkiewicz, Executive Secretary of the Minamata Convention on Mercury. Apologies if I mispronounced anyone's names. Each of our distinguished speakers will share updates on their upcoming COPs and their perspectives on why youth engagement is important in these conventions. Let's begin with Ms. Cardenas Fischer.
Thank you very much for inviting the BRS Secretariat to this event. We're very happy to be able to join you this afternoon for us, the morning for some of you. And I just want to also extend the apologies of our Executive Secretary, Mr. Rolf Payet, who had planned to be here speaking to you, but who unfortunately, due to all the last minute commitments that we have, is unable to join you. But I'm happy to be here. I hope I'll do him justice. Just very quickly, you did ask where people are from. I am Colombian. I'm a senior policy and strategy advisor in the Secretariat of the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Conventions. I have been around for quite a bit, and I started when I was a youth, I would say. So just like as Ludovic mentioned before, sometimes we have been through long paths, but it's very nice to see so many youth being engaged in not just in this event, but on chemicals and waste. And we do look forward to having you guys joining us at our meetings of the conferences of the parties. I'll just do a very brief overview of what it is that we work on for you to have a better idea. Can I have the next slide, please? I don't know if I can do them. Yeah. So the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Conventions are three global treaties that address chemicals and waste in their life cycle. Their main aim is to protect human health and the environment. And they have interlinkages with both climate change and biodiversity. Next slide, please. We have quite a broad geographical coverage. So our conventions, everything that you see there, whether it's in blue or green or yellow, those are countries that are currently parties to our conventions, and the blue ones are the ones that are parties to the three conventions. We have one large non-party, which is the US, and you can't really see it very well in this map, but also Jamaica, sorry, we have one of the islands, Haiti, in the Caribbean, which is not a party to any of the three conventions, and a couple of countries in Africa. Otherwise, we pretty much have a global coverage. Next slide, please. So why is it that the BRS conventions matter, and why should they matter to you and to others? Chemicals and wastes are everywhere in our daily lives. We find them in our household. Here you see an example of a slide that has features different rooms in a household. They are
Think we might have lost Maria Cristina for a second. Maria Cristina, are you still with us? Okay. We might have lost connection with Maria Cristina from BRS Secretariat. So maybe we can come back to where she left off and perhaps invite Monica now to take the floor and share her presentation. I see Maria Cristina is trying to load back in, but we'll give her a moment to reestablish connection.
All right, thank you so much, Shannon. Let me do that. And I would say today is a special day. I think we are experiencing some internet issues, so please also bear with me. That's normally doesn't happen, but if at any time it does happen, don't hesitate to let me know that you can't hear me or you can't see me or the slides. Thank you so much. It's a really pleasure to be with you. I think it's my first opportunity to speak to a larger youth constituency. So thank you so much for making it possible for me and for us. And I'm heading the secretariat of the convention, which is relatively small. We are 15 colleagues, and I have been in this position for 5 years, and with UN for 5 years. And before I worked on the marine environment protection, and I'm Polish by nationality. We have in our secretariat a focal point for youth and youth engagement. Apologies, I didn't put his photograph and name on the slide, but you can find his name on our convention website. He's Richard Gutierrez, and he will be your primary point of contact for any matters related to your interest and engagement in the work of the convention. Let's move to the next slide, where I would like to a little bit tell about the convention. You have some basic facts about it on the slide, but I would perhaps like to explain where the name Minamata comes from. Minamata is a place, a bay, a coastal area in Japan, where in 60s there was a major environmental crisis related to releases of mercury to the marine environment and contamination of fish that led to poisoning of people living on the bay shores. It's not the only mercury environmental crisis that happened at that time. However, Japan was generous enough to offer the name to the convention to commemorate this strategy, but also to send a message that we all want to learn from what happened in the past. And I encourage you to do some search of it. I visited Minamata, and I would like to say that environmental crisis like that is also human health crisis. It's a social crisis. The impact of environmental pollution and impacts on health are going much beyond for the decades to come. And Minamata is nowadays a beautiful city. There has been huge investments to recover the land and to rectify the situation, but I think it can never be fully rectified. So it's a really beautiful story to learn from. And let me move to the next slide. So why mercury? And Ludo mentioned in his opening about this approach that parties tend to deal with chemicals issues, pollutant by pollutant. Mercury is a single metal that is subject to the Minamata Convention. And here I would like to a little bit explain why countries in the world decided that there is a need to have a treaty for mercury. It has a special characteristics that makes it especially hazardous and dangerous. You know, it's a natural element. It's on the periodic table. It's not human-made. Yet its circulation and concentration in the environment is increased because of also human activities. Very persistent. Once released in the environment, it will remain in the environment, in bioaccumulate in single species of animals, but also through the food chain. It's very toxic. It's one of the most toxic, of 10 most toxic hazardous substances, according to World Health Organization. An important aspect is it can be transported over long ranges. So it's considered as an issue of global concern, and therefore the treaty was put in place. It has a very severe health effects that are irreversible. So I think this is really heartbreaking to learn or to know that there are still people living in situations where they are exposed to mercury and their health actually is being impacted for life. Next one, please. Through the years, there was a increasing knowledge of where mercury that is introduced to the environment by humans, where it comes from. And you can see some statistics here on major sources of mercury. It often comes from industrial processes, such as burning of coal, because mercury is contained in coal. But one quite unexpected source at the time of negotiation of the convention was, as we call it, artisanal and small-scale gold mining. So it's a very basic type of mining that it's possible to do by anyone, basically, and it is widely practiced, and it is covered by the convention for that reason. The small-scale artisanal gold mining is often actually not so small-scale. There is quite equipment being used. Sometimes in some countries it's illegal, sometimes it's informal, and definitely engages a lot of people across all the continents, including there is a child labor going on. There are huge impacts on biodiversity, sometimes infringement on indigenous peoples' territories. Often it is the only possibility for income for local communities as well. So it's a very complex socioeconomic challenge and environmental challenge. Let me move on to the next slide, please. This is an overview of what convention covers, and in interest of time, I'm not going through all these issues, but to say the logic of the conventions both look into where the mercury comes from and regulate that. So mercury mining, through regulating the use in products and processes, also regulating mercury trade, and also controlling unintentional mercury releases and emissions. And there is a number of provisions in the convention that are supportive or enabling for parties to implement the convention. So basically, the convention covers the, as we call it, entire life cycle of mercury. It's a different concept from saying that we should look into circular economy. We don't want mercury to be circling in the economy. We want to take it out and to eliminate in the future the use of it, so it's not basically needed on the market. Next slide, please. And I would like to give you an example of concrete examples what the convention is doing. And here I should explain what I mean convention is doing. Of course, there are people. It's not the convention itself. And there's other MEAs, multilateral environmental agreements. We have parties. We have different governing bodies. We have our conference of the parties every 2 years. Observers, stakeholders are extremely important in our work, and they have also a role to play to support governments in the implementation. And I would be happy to continue discussing the details of our governance systems and how youth could engage, or you could engage. This concrete example I'm presenting is about that the phasing out the use of mercury in our daily products. I'm sure that some of you might have been exposed or aware or are using some of those products. There used to be, and they are still in use in some countries, mercury thermometers. There is a use of mercury in cosmetics, surprisingly. This is something that receives more and more attention. The convention requires parties to basically phase out the use of mercury by 2020. In recent COP 2023, this regulation has been strengthened to help to enforce. But still, this is a product where we need to collaborate more. Another example is that the convention requires to phase out fluorescent lamps, which in practice means really also energy savings and a shift to LED technology. And there are some other examples of products that by 2027 basically should not be manufactured or imported or exported, and therefore really reduce the risk of exposure of people in daily life. Next one, please. this is another example of ongoing work under the convention related to the mentioned artisanal small-scale gold mining. The convention has its own financial mechanism. It's composed of two elements: it's GEF, Global Environmental Facility, and also we in the Secretariat are managing a small grant-making program called Specific International Program. On this slide, you see an example of a GEF-funded program called Planet Gold that goes directly into the core challenges related to artisanal small-scale gold mining and is focusing on improving production practices, but also improving working conditions for miners and working, as we call it, on responsible gold. So gold that is produced respecting certain working standards, and importantly, the gold that is produced without the use of mercury. And as an interesting fact, I could tell you that 20% of the gold on the global market is from this sector, informal or formal or illegal artisanal small-scale gold mining. So imagine if you would go to a jewelry shop, you may wonder, do I know where this gold comes from? Is this a responsible sourced gold? Or, you know, there is some room for all of us to be mindful of that, and also make our consumer choices accordingly. Next one, please. A little bit about the upcoming COP, and I have two slides presenting topics that will be put forward for parties' considerations. You could perhaps take a look at it also later. But just on an eye level, I would like to highlight a couple of issues. One is that COP is continuing consideration of phasing out the use of dental amalgam. It's another product that we all come across, not as much as before, but in many countries it's still used quite widely. There is ongoing work related to engagement of indigenous peoples and also local communities, not only with regards to gold mining, but also in other aspects of the work. And we will be putting some documents for parties' consideration how participation of indigenous peoples could be enhanced. And that, of course, includes also youth. There will be some matters related to financial mechanism. Next one, please. And the first effectiveness evaluation of the convention. This is basically to see, is convention working? Is it going to achieve the aims it put for itself? So it also, since it's being done for the first time, it's also important to receive the input and perspectives from civil society, including on youth, to make sure that this exercise really is as best as it can be done. And then we are also having as a single, separate agenda item the links to biodiversity and global biodiversity framework, as there are very strong links between mercury and biodiversity, and we, meaning both Secretariat and parties, wish to have a very close collaboration on that matter with those working under Convention on Biological Diversity in particular. And the next one, please. That's, I believe, my last slide to a little bit talk about the avenues for engagement for youth and youth organizations. We have just launched a updated convention website where we have a topic related to youth engagement. I would be happy to receive some support to grow this resource further and to include relevant information and receive feedback, whether positive or negative, how we can really improve it, that it's useful. As for other MEAs, we will have several possibilities to engage at the COP itself through being an accredited observer, participating in our events during the COP and prior to the COP. And what we also appreciate is also advocacy on a national level and collaboration with governments so they can be better in implementing the convention. And of course, we try to be active through social media and other communication channels And I hope also on your and rely on your support to amplify the messages we are putting forward to seek even greater engagement in the future. Let me stop here, and I hope I have not talked longer than 10 minutes, and I'm happy to answer any questions, and I will stay in the webinar and will follow with interest also next presentations and discussions. Thank you so much.
Thank you so much, Monica. So it looks like Maria Cristina is back. Does she want to take the floor again? Also, just to remind everyone, we'll be doing questions afterwards. There will be a session component, a part of this to do that.
Thank you very much, and I do apologize that my video and my connection got cut before. I think that I'm having some difficulties in my office, so because I can see my video going black to there. Good. So I'm in your hands. Happy to go whichever way you prefer to go.
I believe you could take the floor right now.
Okay, so thank you very much, and I do apologize that I dropped out in the middle of it. As I was saying, chemicals are everywhere in our lives, and you heard Monica also talk a bit about the Minamata and the fact that the mercury is found everywhere. So the chemicals that are addressed under the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Conventions are also everywhere. Earlier on, I didn't explain that the Basel Convention deals mainly with waste and the transboundary movement of waste. The Rotterdam Convention deals with many pesticides and industrial chemicals that are listed under the convention and for which there is a need to have a prior informed consent in order to be able to export those chemicals that are listed under the convention. So it's a system that allows for making sound decisions on the use of chemicals and waste. And the Stockholm Convention is about persistent organic pollutants. Currently, there are 34 chemicals listed under the convention. And this means that all of those chemicals are eventually slotted in for elimination. Next slide, please. Now, pollution is for sure one of the key drivers of biodiversity loss. Chemicals are found everywhere, anywhere, and they're invisible. This is why we have actually chosen as a theme for our COPs this year, the theme Make Visible the Invisible. We want to raise awareness of all of these chemicals that are in our lives that we don't necessarily see, but which do affect human health and the environment. And we want to ensure that we can manage them in a safe manner. Next one, please. The SDG 12.4 addresses chemicals and waste. It is one of the key SDGs, and there was a deadline to achieve the environmentally sound management of chemicals and waste by 2020. We do hope that we're still on time to achieve that goal at least by 2030, and this is what the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Conventions aim at. Next slide, please. E-waste is one of the fastest growing streams of waste currently, in addition to also plastics, but e-waste is quite a very important one. There is an amendment now under the Basel Convention that actually categorizes all of the wastes, all of the e-wastes, which are subject to the prior informed consent in order to be able to ship them around the world. Next slide, please. Now, when it comes to plastics, as you can see from this slide, there are more than 800 marine and coastal species that are affected by plastic debris throughout ingestion, entanglement, ghost fishing, dispersal, and many more. Habitats are always affected. Many of these plastics contain chemicals that are listed under the Stockholm Convention and the Rotterdam Convention, therefore why they are relevant to the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Conventions. Next slide, please. So what is the role that you can play? For us, in addition to knowing a bit about what the conventions are, we believe that the youth and civil society are key players in the implementation, in the successful implementation of the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Conventions. Next slide, please. So we believe that by or through your engagement, we can ensure that there is intergenerational justice. We are also strong believers that the youth bring innovative ideas and fresh perspectives that allow us to deal better with the topics that we address. It also, you can play a key role in mobilizing grassroots pressure. And this is something that I dearly believe in. I think that you can all play a key role back at home just by raising awareness on what chemicals and waste are and what happens when they're not managed in a proper manner. Next slide, please. Now, how to engage with the BRS COPs? The BRS COPs are actually happening in 2 weeks' time here in Geneva. And I know that many of you might be coming to Geneva. If you don't come to Geneva, you can still engage with us online, but you can also help us implement the conventions. The next slide, please. If you're attending our COPs, we have a fair, an exhibition area which is titled Make Visible the Invisible. There will be many side events and many activities being held. The fair will be held between the 30th of April and the 2nd of May. The youth do have quite a number of activities. We will also be launching our new advocate for clean glaciers and mountains. So you'll be having a chance to meet him on the 6th of May. That will be the day we will be launching our new advocate. And there'll be many activities, including a game. We have developed a game on the sound management of chemicals and wastes, and we hope that you will be engaging with us, not just during the COPs in playing the game, but also that you download it. The game can be downloaded through our website. It's sorry, the game. And if you want boxes of the game, we can also share it with you. It's a escape game, and it's to be played in teams. During our COPs, we believe that it is a very important opportunity and a good opportunity for you to learn more of what we do, and also to engage in discussion with other delegates from around the world that may have different perspectives on what is to be done. The next slide, please. Also, if you are in Geneva, we have an exhibition by the lakeside with these panels that you see, which raise awareness on the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm conventions, the main milestones, what the conventions do, and how they have interlinkages with climate change and biodiversity loss. This exhibition will be up and running, or it's already running from the 1st of April, and it'll be up until the 4th of May. So if you have a chance, I would invite you to go to the Rotonde de Mont Blanc and visit the exhibition. Next slide, please. We have quite a number of communication tools that you can access on our website. There's the links here. We'll share them with you also separately. But we do invite you to engage. And if any of you are interested in journalism and in writing stories, please contact us. We'll be very happy to work together with you to produce some stories. Next slide, please. This is just a quick slide with a QR code that allows you direct access to our website for the COPs. This time around, the Basel Conventions, a high-level segment opportunity taking to the 1st of May. Quite a large number of ministers and deputy ministers from around the thing. And the main objective of this high-level segment is to raise the visibility of the work undertaken under the three conventions. Eva, it is your opportunity to meet with these high-level representatives and just up and see what they're doing in different countries. Please.
Still with us, Maria
slide.
Cristina? We might have. Oh, there we go. Think we may have lost Maria Cristina once more, but I'm glad we were able to get through a majority of your presentation, and thank you so much to you and the BRS Secretariat. Ampo, I'll turn it over to you maybe for the interactive
You're still
segment
hearing
now.
me? Can you next?
Yeah, Ampo, I think you could start the interactive segment. I don't think we're getting Maria Cristina's audio anymore, unfortunately.
Okay,
So
thank you.
We'll move on to Q&A now. So if you have questions, comments for Monica from the Minamata Convention or for Maria Cristina from the BRS Convention, please share them in the Q&A box and we will get to them one by one. And over to you, Ampo.
Thank you to both of our speakers today. Like Shannon just said, we open the floor for questions. I do have two questions right now. I'll start with Monica. So the question that we have is, how does Minamata Secretary ensure engagement of or plan to engage local stakeholders and grassroots for effective implementation of the Minamata Convention?
Thank you so much for the question. I would say that we have had so far 5 meetings of the Conference of the Parties. So the convention is still relatively young, and but despite the convention being a young, Mercury issue has been present for decades. So the convention was in a good situation when it started, when there was already a lot of awareness and a lot of organizations working on the ground for issue of Mercury, even including across the borders. So we have a really good networks of NGOs, non-governmental organizations in particular, very active, who are supporting the implementation of the convention. What is a little bit has been not as much advanced was and is engagement of other civil society groups, and this is indigenous peoples and local communities who are on their national, local levels absolutely are aware of Mercury issues. So I'm sure they are working on it as well, but the connection to the convention has not been fully made. The same desire, I have to say, I have regarding youth engagement, because youth is also engaged on the level of local implementation, and I see it as a group who can really add agency to the work on the convention. So I'm very open to also your ideas how to do it in a meaningful way. I'm not looking into checking the box in any ways, but partnering with organization to help us achieve this greater interest on the grassroots level. Thank you.
Thank you. And then one more follow-up question for you. Will there be an African regional meeting for the Minamata meeting?
Yes, there will be, and I believe it's first week of October. We will, in a few weeks, publish all information related to Conference of the Parties and regional meetings on our website. And organizations who are accredited observers to the COP are also invited to attend regional meeting. We might have the meeting in Botswana. We are currently, we receive an offer to host the meeting. However, we need to still see the details of it. So probably it will be Botswana. If not Botswana, then Nairobi in Kenya.
Thank you. I have one question for Maria. I'm not sure if she can hear me. Shannon, I'm not sure if her.
I think we might have lost Maria Cristina for
Oh.
the time being, so
Okay.
we could see
Awesome.
if there's any more questions for Monica, and then we can maybe transition to the next segment. And we will take all questions for BRS back with us and make sure we get you those responses after the briefing as well.
Great, thank you. Okay, Monica, well, we have one more question for you. What are more ways that we can stop chemical pollution into our water systems, rivers, streams, especially in the northern part of Nigeria, where there's not a proper way to dispose those chemicals? How do conventions focus on pollution of water?
Thank you so much for your question, and I fully understand the concern. It's, I think, one of the biggest challenge actually is how to dispose of chemical products or products containing chemicals in appropriate way. It also relates to the fact that many of those chemicals are not actually produced in some countries, but they are being exported to those countries, and then there is not always a proper responsibility of a producer of a product to ensure that also its disposal is done in such a way that the environment is not impacted, especially far away from where these products are produced. So it's also a matter of, I would say, the conventions like Basel Convention, which regulates shipment of waste, and that's very important from that point of view. I think in your chat you mentioned an important aspect, which is monitoring. I think that's like a very important and basic requirement that every country should and government should put in place to know and be alarmed if there is risks of pollution in the water system, and that already gives a lot of information to act on, and also importance of people having access to that information. They actually have a right to know. And that sometimes is the very beginning of dealing with an issue. So let me recognize that problem absolutely. And for Minamata Convention, we do also work on mercury waste. And I mentioned all these products being phased out, but of course, what to do with the products that already exist. And we don't want to, by phasing out, create the leaps of the products that are dumped in different places without the proper management. So I hope that with time, at least as far as mercury is concerned, we would not basically have such products any longer anywhere, and we would need to deal with them. Thanks.
Thank you so much. And thank you everyone for asking these questions. It helps us all when we're all engaged and actively participating, so thank you. Again, let's give a big thank you to Maria Cristina and Monica. I'd like to turn to Marinda to moderate our next segment.
Ampo, I'm sorry if I could cut in. I think we have Maria Cristina back actually on the phone. So could we, there's 3 questions for her I just shared in the chat. If we
Sure.
maybe have, well, we have Basel, Rotterdam, Stockholm Convention with us, would be great to get those youth questions addressed.
Great.
Apologies,
Okay.
can you? Once again, my apologies for this. I don't know, today I seem to really be fighting with the connectivity. And so would you mind reading out the questions?
Yeah,
So
I
don't
can
see-
read them out,
yeah.
Maria. So one question I have is, what is the peculiarity of the edition of the BRS convention? Is it still possible to register at this stage as a youth-led organization? This person is asking about the process to get youth-led organizations accredited to the COPs.
Thank you very much for the question. There is a process for for registering and accrediting organizations as observers in our COPs. It's a bit late now for our Conference of the Parties. However, the youth platform is already registered as an observer. So I would suggest that some of the, if interested, perhaps some of the youth who would like to participate, who don't currently have a status as an independent observer organization, that they liaise with the youth platform and participate as part of the delegation from the youth platform. I can send you the details of how to register your organization to become an observer organization to the BRS COPs. So I do apologize for that.
Thank you. So we do have another question. This person is from Lebanon. So they wanted to ask about any strategies that are being proposed to strengthen the implementation of the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Conventions in developing countries. And then particularly concerning capacity building and access to financial resources.
So access to financial resources and capacity building, technology transfer, transfer of technology, technical assistance. These are all key issues under our conventions. There are ongoing strategies to strengthen the conventions, and there are different programs under both the Basel and the Rotterdam conventions that will be discussed during our COPs this time around. But overall, we do pay a big importance on capacity building. I'll send you the link so you can visit our website and see what possibilities for engagement there are. We do have a number of opportunities to apply for projects and for other supporting activities.
Great, thank you. I also have one more question before we move on. Are new toxic substances considered for the Basel Convention?
New toxic, no. The Basel Convention overall doesn't actually list particular chemicals or substances, but it does have a number of waste categories. Currently, there is nothing new coming up. It's under both the Rotterdam and the Stockholm Conventions, where we regularly list new chemicals in the annexes to the conventions. And normally, those chemicals would have been reviewed by the subsidiary bodies under both conventions, namely the Persistent Organic Review Committee and the Chemicals Review Committee. And for the Rotterdam Convention, there are 4 new chemicals being considered, and under the Stockholm also there's 3 chemicals that are being considered at this COP.
Thank you. I believe that concludes our questions for now. So thank you again, Maria, and thank you, Monica, for being here and presenting to us and answering our questions. We really appreciate it. And as a young person myself, it really helps to hear from you all in leadership. So we'll take a second to move on. I'd like to turn to Marinda to moderate our next segment. And while we're transitioning, I will say that oh, go ahead.
You're saying? Did you want to say something?
Oh, I was just gonna say that any other questions we will be able to forward on later on. So thank you. Go ahead, Miranda.
Awesome. Hi again, everyone. My name is Marinda, and I am a Chemicals and Waste Youth Platform member and environmental advocate from Samoa, an island nation in the Pacific. And today I am honored to introduce Ms. Nicole Caesar from the Secretariat of the Global Framework on Chemicals, who will tell us about this newest policy framework and what we can expect for the open-ended working group meeting in June. So, Ms. Caesar, please, the floor is yours.
Thanks so much, Marinda. I'll just wait for the slides to appear. Okay, perfect. Okay, thanks so much. Hopefully everyone can hear me clearly. I'm really grateful for this opportunity to be here with you and with the other presenters to discuss how to empower young people to participate in global efforts to address pollution, chemicals, and waste management. As Marinda mentioned, my name is Nicole Caesar. I grew up in the small island developing state of St. Lucia in the Caribbean, so it's nice to see some other SIDS here as well. And I currently work with UNEP's Chemicals and Health branch in Geneva. And UNEP is a partner of the Global Framework on Chemicals, which we call the GFC. As Shannon mentioned in her opening remarks, this event sort of highlights the importance of meaningful youth involvement in shaping solutions in pollution and chemicals management, and also to emphasize the intergenerational concerns, including the impact of chemical pollution on future generations. So I'm here representing the GFC today. I'll walk you through what it is and why it was created, and how it connects to young people like you, and the role that we expect the GFC to play in shaping a better future for everyone. So on to the next slide. Thanks. So as our previous speakers mentioned, so chemicals are everywhere. They're in our food, in our clothes, our phones, our medicines, and even in the air and the water around us. Some, of course, are helpful, and others, when not managed properly or when not disposed of correctly, can cause serious harm to our health and the environment. And every year, millions of people are affected by unsafe chemical exposure. And we found that young people can be quite vulnerable to the effects of exposure to chemicals, especially those working in agriculture or mining sectors or informal jobs, but also those who live in areas with heightened exposure to agricultural and industrial chemicals, their byproducts, and improperly disposed chemical waste. So hazardous chemicals also harm reproductive health and pass from mothers to unborn children. And the scale of the challenge has grown so much that scientists now say that we have crossed a planetary boundary due to chemical pollution. And these planetary boundaries are a scientific framework that identify 9 critical processes that regulate the stability and resilience of Earth's systems. The boundaries define safe operating limits for humanity to thrive without causing irreversible environmental harm. So you can think of them as guardrails for the planet. And this issue of chemicals pollution falls within the introduction of novel entities boundary, which addresses pollution from synthetic chemicals, plastics, and other human-made substances. So now that we know all of this, what do we do and how are we working in this space? On the next slide, the Global Framework on Chemicals is one program that is working to address the aforementioned issues. It's a voluntary global framework adopted in 2023 by governments, industry, civil society, and youth groups and others. And the goal is to help the world to manage chemicals and waste safely so that we can better protect people, biodiversity, and of course, the planet. And this builds on earlier efforts like the Strategic Approach to International Chemicals Management, which was called SICAM for short. But this framework is designed to meet today's urgent challenges. So you can think of it as a global game plan or a roadmap with 5 strategic goals and 28 specific targets to be reached, hopefully, by 2030. And on the next slide, we'll take a look at the 5 main goals, starting with stronger rules and systems to help countries to create and enforce laws that ensure chemicals are used safely. Also, access to information, as mentioned by our previous speaker, to make sure that people, especially the most exposed and vulnerable workers, know what chemicals they're exposed to and how to protect themselves. Also addressing priority issues, so tackling the most urgent chemical threats like lead, mercury, and harmful pesticides. Safer innovation, to work with industry to encourage them to develop safer and more sustainable alternatives. And then lastly, partnership and funding to mobilize support and resources to make real progress, especially in developing countries. So each of these goals helps to reduce harm, to drive innovation, and to promote social, environmental, and intergenerational justice. On the next slide, we see here that the GFC is built on global teamwork, but I would like to explain who leads the GFC and its current contributors. So the GFC is managed by a Geneva-based secretariat. operated within UNEP, the UN Environment Program. The Secretariat is guided by bureau members who represent their governments, as well as multi-sectoral representatives from health and labor industries, and also, of course, the environmental industry. The planning of strategies and activities to move the GFC forward is supported by an open-ended working group, and national focal points operate as liaisons between the Secretariat and their respective countries, and they serve as drivers and implementers of the GFC in this way. But truly, everyone is and can be a driver. So unlike a treaty, this is a voluntary global framework where governments, companies, NGOs, and youth groups all commit to action. Governments are expected to report on their progress, and the GFC Secretariat helps to track results, share knowledge, and support countries that need help. Each year, the Secretariat plans to review progress, to raise visibility, and to celebrate those who are driving change, and youth can and should be a part of that process. On the next slide, 2025 will be an important year for the GFC. In June, the first big official meeting will take place in Uruguay for the open-ended working group, where governments and stakeholders will review plans for how the GFC gets implemented. And then other priorities for this year include developing action plans to protect vulnerable groups and communities from chemical exposure, developing implementation programs to help countries and industries take action, and awarding funds in various countries to help them implement their own projects to tackle chemicals and waste challenges. And then on the last slide, so the chemicals issue, as we know, is not just a science issue, it's also a justice issue. So it's about fairness, transparency, and protecting the right of everyone to live in a healthy environment. And with the Global Framework on Chemicals, the global commitment is to get this right. So we invite you to participate in the process because you are the generation inheriting both the risks and the responsibilities. So yourselves and the other youth networks will be our change makers, our scientists, our educators, our policy advocates, and our entrepreneurs to shape safer, greener futures. The website is still under development, but you can learn more through the link for the website shown here to sign up for updates. And then also you can reach out directly to the Secretariat via email with any questions that you may have. So that ends my GFC presentation. I wondered if I could just quickly circle back to two questions that were asked. One from, I think, our participant from Lebanon, and one from Nigeria. Just to mention that we work in partnership, as you can tell from what we're saying here. You hear us repeating similar things across our presentations. So we work together to build upon the work that the other teams are doing in this space. And just to mention, for our participant from Nigeria, the Special Program Secretariat is also housed in UNEP. And this is a dedicated funding mechanism designed to sort of complement the work done by the GEF to support the implementation of the Basel, Rotterdam, Stockholm, and Minamata Conventions in countries, and also the GFC in countries. Nigeria actually benefited from a first project, which was mostly designed to help to shape and draft legislation, and a second project launched in Nigeria today, where they will focus on capacity building for laboratory technicians. So hopefully over time, all of this capacity building will help to support exactly what you're talking about, to enhance your ability to monitor air, soil, water, to be able to track what's happening and then design the solutions needed to reduce pollution. And I think that maybe also speaks to the question that was asked by the participant from Lebanon. So that's all for me. Thanks very much. Happy to take any questions.
Thank you for guiding us through what is on the horizon for the Global Framework on Chemicals, Ms. Caesar. And, you know, for our young people, our youth, being in policymaking and decision-making spaces like these can be very overwhelming. And so to have you here with us and having shared your experience and expertise, as well as sharing updates and information regarding GFC. And I think this is a very big win for us today. And also, as one of the youth delegates at ICCM 5, which adopted the GFC, I am so excited to see its implementation come to life at the first meeting in June. I know we've been at this for a while. I will now open up the floor for our youth participants for 5 minutes with some quick questions or reflections focused on what you heard about the GFC. And while that's rolling, I've actually got a couple questions here for you, Miss Caesar, if that's okay. The first question is, as someone deeply involved in grassroots and healthcare work, I'm concerned about how these complex global negotiations are translated to the layperson. What strategies or communication mechanisms are in place or being considered to ensure that communities, especially in underserved regions, are formed and empowered to engage with the outcomes of these international agreements, especially for the health sector?
That's a very good question. And those are the questions that are being considered and will be considered in the open-ended working group meeting that's coming up this summer. I can say that the team is currently recruiting a comms officer and a knowledge and measurability officer to really have the staff and the expertise needed to be able to focus on these really important areas. Because you're absolutely right, there does have to be much more work done. And as you can see, we're trying to do work in this space. Minamata and BRS showed that they're further along in the development of their platforms and their tools. And the GFC also will hope to be developing toolkits and comms material for various segments of society, both technical and non-technical stakeholders. But they're just getting started. So give the Secretariat a little time. And also, we're not starting from scratch, right? We're learning from the best practice of the other conventions and secretariats who've been operating successfully for years. So we're working on it, is my answer. And then, did I miss the second part of the question? Marinda, remind me, please.
The strategies or communication mechanisms
To be
being
developed,
considered.
yes.
Yeah. Okay, we have a second question, and it's, how does the GFC Secretariat plan to leverage synergies between GFC and other conventions?
Well, by design, because again, we're the GFC is sort of like the next phase of what was previously SICAM. You know, the previous voluntary global agreement to push everyone forward in this space in a multi-sectoral, multi-stakeholder way, which is the most fun way to work, but also the most difficult way to work. We know when you have all of the voices at the table. So again, moving beyond SICAM and then also working closely with the other conventions is something that happens by design, because the framework is here to support the implementation of those chemicals conventions in country based on country and regional need and priority as they're expressed to us, especially when countries come forward for funding, for example. To do specific projects in country. So I would say that those synergies happen by design, and that I already see the Secretariat working very, very closely with BRS and with Minamata to ensure that we're sort of supporting the work of each other without duplicating the work, because you want to make sure that the funds that are available are achieving the most outcomes without repeating work that's already been done by other teams and other funds. And the only way to do that is to be abreast of what everyone is doing. So we're trying to work across the board in this way to enhance this agenda and strengthen synergies and minimize duplications. I hope that answers the question. If not, just let me know.
Awesome.
And you can also feel free again to send us anything by email, and I can source the answers and send them back to you.
Awesome. And we have our last question here, and it's, how can youth meaningfully contribute to the implementation of the GFC, especially in raising awareness, promoting safer alternatives, and ensuring accountability in chemicals and waste management?
Okay, thanks for that question. I think it also depends a bit on the level that you wish to work at. So if you wish to work at the national level, then it would be to partner with your focal points in country. So it would be the GFC focal point, for example, and then there are also, of course, the GEF focal points and the focal points for the other chemicals conventions. So to partner with them to learn about the projects that are happening in the country, because we always have projects running in your countries. You just may not be aware. So it's to access the information and then see how you can help them to upscale what the work that they're trying to do, either through outreach or through capacity building. In some cases, there may be opportunities for citizen science to take place, where an organized youth group would definitely be helpful because, monitoring, funds for monitoring are never enough. So that would be at the national level. And then, of course, at the international level, it would be through forums such as this one, through the youth consultative meetings, and through the children and youth major groups, where you get to participate, whether it be here in Geneva or at other big conferences happening elsewhere, where you're sort of guided to streamline your ask and then present it in the meeting. And all of that just feeds in, as Marinda knows, through OEWG last year, right? It feeds into the decisions that are made by the other people in the room.
Okay. Thank you so much, Ms. Caesar. Your insights are invaluable as we look ahead to these crucial developments. Thank you again for your time and contribution, and to our participants. If you do have questions, and if we did not get to your question, please include it in our chat box. We will note this question and comments down, and we will be able to provide them to our speakers after the briefing. I'd now like to invite my colleague, Raphael, to moderate our next segment on the INC and Science Policy Panel. Thank you.
Hi, everyone. My name is Raphael, and I am a Chemicals and Waste Youth Platform member from Brazil, and I am part of the Zero Waste Alliance in Brazil. I am really excited to welcome our next speakers, Ms. Mathilde Corrêa from the Intergovernmental Negotiation Committee on Plastic Pollution Secretariat, and Dr. Zhenyu Wang from the Science Policy Panel Open-Ended Working Group Secretariat. Welcome, and thank you so much for sharing your time and expertise with us today. So let's begin with you, Ms. Corrêa, to tell us a little bit more about the process to negotiate a new global plastics treaty, where we currently stand, and what we can expect for the upcoming INC 5.2. So, Ms. Corrêa, the floor is yours.
Good afternoon, good morning, everyone. I hope you can hear me.
Yes, we can hear you.
So thank you so much for inviting the UNEP Secretariat of the INC, the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee on Plastic Pollution, to this briefing. Ms. Jyoti Mata-Philip, the Executive Secretary of the INC, sends the warmest greetings to all of you. So my name is Mathilde Corrêa, and I've had the privilege of working at UNEP within the INC Secretariat as an associate expert since the INC, the Intergovernmental Negotiating Committee, first formed and began its work in Uruguay back in November 2022. Now we are in 2025, and the committee is continuing its work with the ambition of concluding the negotiations on an international legally binding instrument of plastic pollution, including in the marine environment. So as you may know, the committee will reconvene in Geneva, Switzerland, from 5 to 14 of August for the second part of its fifth session, so INC 5.2. It will be a very, very critical session that could shape the world we live in today and for generations to come. As part of my work in the Secretariat that supports the committee, I help facilitate observer engagement. I joined UNEP and the Secretariat and the United Nations Junior Professional Officer Program, which enables young professionals, so typically under the age of 32, to gain experience within the UN system. And actually, I'm not the only one. Today, there are 3 GPOs in the INC Secretariat, We are also fortunate to be supported by other young professionals, including a UN volunteer, a United Nations volunteer. So by sharing this, I just want to highlight the vital contributions that young professionals are making to the INC and other multilateral processes. But your engagement as youth from the outside is just as essential. Youth voices bring fresh ideas and thinking, innovation, the bold energy, and the determination needed to push for collective action. And this inspires stakeholders across the board. Young people are not passive observers in this negotiations process. Young professionals are active participants, they are key stakeholders, and you've been present at every INC session so far, and your contributions can make a real impact. Critical youth participation is broad, whether as legal experts, we have lawyers, scientists, economists, doctors, civil servants, activists, to name a few. And you as professionals bring knowledge and passion to this global environmental crisis and its solutions. So your advocacy is essential to ensure that the outcomes of INC 5.2 reflect both the urgency of the crisis and the hopes of young people around the world. This process needs diverse youth voices to build momentum, raise awareness, and help drive the finalization of the agreement. So for this reason, I would like to encourage those of you who are eligible to register for INC 5.2. It will take place in Geneva, Switzerland from 5 to 14 August. Registration is now open, and the deadline is 6 June 2025. So I would encourage eligible observer organizations to register well ahead of the deadline, especially for those who need a visa to travel to Geneva. The process can receive registrations from organizations accredited to UNEP, but also organizations with ECOSOC status, and also organizations accredited to an MEA, so multilateral environmental agreements administered by UNEP. If you need more information on ways and how to engage in the INC process, I would invite you to consult an observer engagement guide, which is available to our website, and I will also add a link in the chat. If you have specific queries, you can also contact the Secretariat directly. I will add the email address in the chat. We are also aware that funding is a challenge for youth representation, but I'm pleased to share that the Secretariat has supported youth representatives in the past, and we're continuing this support for INC 5.2, thanks to the voluntary contributions from member states to the INC process. The deadline to request for funding is 6th of May. Priority will be given to requests from the Global South, particularly delegates coming from least developed countries and small island developing states. Please note that to request for funding, you need to be first registered and approved. So registration and request for funding are two separate processes, meaning that if you wish to request for funding, you need to be registered before 6th of May. So I will look forward to welcoming you in Geneva this August. And please keep raising your voices, stay engaged, and continue driving action, because your presence truly matters in this process. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Ms. Goya, for the presentation. Sorry for any mispronunciation. And thanks a lot for the update on how can the young people can engage in this process, and how can be more involved in the global plastics treaty negotiation. So before moving on to the next speaker, I would like to invite everyone that is participating to drop in the chat any comments, any questions to our speakers, especially for the global plastics treaty process and the science policy panel open-ended working group. So Now, for our next speaker, I would like to invite Dr. Wang to share what is being worked on as a part of the open-ended working group to develop a science policy panel on chemicals, waste, and pollution. So, Dr. Wang, the floor is yours.
Yeah, thank you so much, and many thanks for the invitation. I'm happy to represent the SPP OEWG Secretariat to provide updates on our preparation for the forthcoming negotiation session in June in Uruguay. So if you go to the next slide. Yeah, so just also a little bit of the background is that it was in March 2022 that UNEA adopted Resolution 58, decided that a science policy panel should be established to contribute further to the sound management of chemicals and prevent pollution. And also the same resolution has established ad hoc open-ended working group processes, which has started working in 2022 to develop proposals for establishing the panel. And also the same resolution said once upon completion of the proposals, the UNEP-ED will convene an intergovernmental meeting for the purpose of considering the establishment of such a science policy panel. Next slide, please. So the first part of the third session of OEWG took place in Geneva in June last year, and it was agreed that to resume the third session, OEWG 3.2, back-to-back with the intergovernmental meeting for the purpose of considering the establishment of the science policy panel. The outcomes of the key documents for negotiation at OEWG3 are the foundational documents with its sections on scope, objective, and functions, operating principles and approaches, institutional arrangements and evaluation, and the draft rules of procedure for the governing body of the panel. The outcome of OEWG 3.1 will form the basis for the resumed negotiations. It was agreed that the outcome annexed to the meeting report will be transmitted to OEWG 3.2 in view of finalizing the foundational document and the rules of procedure. The outcome was annexed to the OEWG 3.1 meeting report and as such has been made available since the report on the website, on the OEWG 3.1 website at the beginning of October 2024. The expected outcome of the resumed third session is that these two documents, the foundational document and the rules of procedure, will be finalized alongside related decision for the intergovernmental meeting that will lead to the establishment of the panel. Next slide, please. OEWG 3.2 will take place at the Convention and Exhibition Center in Punta del Este from 15 to 18 June 2025. The resumed session will be preceded by informal regional and stakeholder consultation on the 14th of June and followed by the intergovernmental meeting on 19th and 20th of June held at the same venue. We thank the government of Uruguay for hosting the meetings. And the meeting will also be back-to-back with the GFC OEWG, and more details can be found on our website. Next slide, please. Currently, in this intersessional period, the Secretariat has prepared a series of webinars and other events to prepare participants for the resumed third session. The recordings can be found online and the links are embedded in this presentation, I believe, which will be made available by the organizers. Since June 2024, we have organized 3 webinars, one webinar on strengthening scientist engagement, One is on information session on the foundational document and rules of procedure, informing governments and other stakeholders of the state of play at the close of OEWG 3.1. And a webinar offering relevant examples from other panels, namely IPCC and IPBES, for the establishment of a science policy panel. On March 25th, the Secretariat organized an informal briefing for the SPP OEWG focal point on the OEWG 3.2 scenario note with the chair, who spoke to the modalities for the meeting and other details. And we will have 2 more events coming up very soon. One is that the Secretariat is co-organizing together with the BRS Secretariat, the UK government, and the Geneva Environment Network, a side event at BRS Corps on April 29th in the evening. That will also be online streamed as webinar. And then prior to the start of OEW 3.2, the Secretariat will also organize a pre-session briefing on the 29th of May. Next slide, please. So in summary, the focus of OEWG 3.2 will be on the 2 key working documents, the foundational document and the draft rules of procedure and their related decisions. These are listed in black. What will not be on the table for OEWG 3.2 are documents grayed out on the slide. It is proposed that these draft procedures and policies will directly be forwarded for further consideration by the panel itself at the first session of its governing body. Please note that the financial procedures were not considered at OEWG 3.1, and it was agreed that these will be forwarded to OEWG 3.2 as an information document only. Next slide, please. And for the negotiations, so this slide provides some of the current thinking for clustering of key topics, which is further elaborated by the scenario note, which you can also find on the OEWG 3.2 website. We'll have like 3 clusters. One is on the key bodies of the panel, their operation and related rules of procedure. The second is on the other elements of the foundational document and decision to establish the panel not considered by the first cluster. And then the third one will consider the other rules of procedure and related decisions and the decision on interim arrangements. Yeah, and the scenario note further elaborates on the clustering of the topics. So I will really encourage you to read through the topics. Next, on the next slide, you can see that the Secretariat has made available a set of working documents on the OEWG 3.2 websites. And we'd like to invite also the stakeholders to provide written comments on these working documents for OEWG 3.2. Please send your submission to our email address no later than 16th of May. And please also submit on behalf of your organization or group. And all submissions will be uploaded online and will be the basis of an information document by the Secretariat for consideration at OEWG 3.2. Next slide, please. So just a very quick overview of the roadmap leading up to the OEWG 3.2 and ultimately the establishment of the panel. As said before, we have organized a couple of these intersessional webinars and events, and then we'll have 2 more events coming, and then have the OEWG 3.2 and intergovernmental meeting back to back in June in Uruguay. And so it is also planned on the very right side that you can see that a first session of the governing body of the panel itself having tentatively penciled in, which obviously can only be scheduled once the panel has been officially established. So here's a very quick overview about the OEW 3.2 and how are we going to organize the work there. And how to prepare yourself for the forthcoming meeting. I would really thank you for your attention and happy to answer any questions that you may have. Thank you so much.
Thank you, Dr. Wang, and thank you, Ms. Correa, for the presentation. Now it's time again for our interactive segment, and so I would like to invite everyone to send your questions for us so the speakers could answer. I see that we have 2 questions right now, and they are both for the INC Secretariat. So the first one is regarding INC. Once operational, how does the Secretariat intend to include stakeholders via technology transfer and project funding? Ms. Correa, can you answer that one? No, she's here.
Raphael, I think actually INC Secretariat had to leave, so maybe we'll take question for SPP Secretariat and we'll forward on all of those questions for INC.
Okay, yes. So I have one question for the SPP. The question is it still a possibility to have a youth scientist as a member of the panel?
I think that the panel is will be open to all the stakeholders to participate as observers. So I definitely think that the youth scientists are more than welcome to join the panel as observers or participating in its work. So as said before, that the Secretariat has organized events or a webinar on the engagement of scientists. Early this year, we'll also post the link into the chats. So this will also this webinar has also detailed the ways for stakeholders to participate in the process. Yeah, thank you.
Thank you, Dr. Wang. I'd like to see if there's any additional question for the SPP Secretariat. Let's give a bit of time to see if there's any new questions. If not, does anyone question? Let me check. No, I don't think there's any additional question. Okay, there is one. Can we participate as a speaker in the webinar?
So this is a webinar that we have organized like early this year. So it's already finished.
Okay.
So you can watch the video online.
Okay, sure. I don't see any additional questions. So thank you so much, everyone. Once again, if we have additional questions, we will note those questions and we can address them lately in our summary after this briefing. And I would like to invite now from Joshua, so he can, from the Chemicals and Waste Youth Platform, so he can share some thoughts on how young people fit into all of this process that we learned about today and what some of the constituencies planned activities are for this year. So Joshua, the floor is yours.
Hello everyone, I am happy to be here. as the plastics thematic focal point of the Chemicals and Waste Youth Platform. Now, before I begin and the presentation loads, I'd like to say some things. Over the past 20 years, throughout the entire UN system, we have seen youth engagement on the rise. It is correlated with successful implementation of multiple MEAs across the UN system, ranging from climate change, biodiversity, and now chemicals and waste. The Chemicals and Waste Youth Platform stands as a pillar in the Chemicals and Waste UN system to help the implementation and successful execution of all chemicals and waste MEAs, treaties that are existing right now and will exist in the future. I thank all members of sectors that have been here, Nicole. Happy to see, especially CIS representation on the GFC Secretariat. As myself, I am from Trinidad and Tobago with my colleague Lizelle. So yeah, thank you very much. And now thank you to Geneva Environment Network for sharing the slides. Now I'd like to introduce this very important 3 slides, which will help build the framework for engagement throughout the latter part of the year in various UN conferences. Now, to begin with, we do have an open call for registration and travel support for the Science Policy Panel and the Global Framework and Chemicals Open-Ended Working Group happening in Uruguay in June. The travel grants are limited, but we do have open registration, and we will help you gain accreditation to enter the conference as a youth representative. The QR code is on the screen. I'll take you directly to the form, and we do look forward to getting a lot of applications. Now, for full transparency, the Chemicals and Waste Youth Platform exists under the Major Group and Youth umbrella, and there are process and procedures to ensure a fair and transparent process for selection of travel grants, however limited. So thank you. Next slide, please. Yes, now what will we do on the ground as the BRS Cup? And I do look forward to meeting all of you there. Now, we do have youth speakers in these various side events. On the 20th of April, which will be, I believe, the first day of the BRS Cup. Thank you, a very warm thank you. I think this is hosted by the UNHCR, the Human Rights Council. How far have the Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Conventions gone in advancing human rights? I do believe we have met the speaker for the side event, which is Anpo. She's a wonderful indigenous youth from North America. And I hope, I know she'll do an amazing job in that side event. And then we have the improvement alignment of children and environmental health in the BRS conventions. And it's a workshop. So this will be another important engagement for us, as it will lay the groundwork for children's environmental health, which is an often forgotten aspect of chemicals and waste management, in that it's only been occurring within the past few years that chemical and pollution thresholds regarding the human body existed mainly for a large male person in his 30s, an adult male. It doesn't take into account children and how their bodies will be impacted. So these are all important discussions that need to be had. And lastly, plastic chemicals of concern and the role of Basel, Rotterdam, and Stockholm Convention, and youth drivers of change in the future plastics treaty. Now, at this moment in time, there is no overall stated or dedicated youth engagement mechanism for the INC plastic treaty. However, this side event will try to engage various the Chemical Waste Platform and the BRS sector, as well as other stakeholders, to see how youth can help drive change through implementation of this treaty. Next slide, please. Thank you. As well as we have a Youth Pollution and Solutions Lab. Now, this is our grandiose idea, because we do understand we can talk our heads off all we want, but we want action. We want to see how our technical ability translate into actual tangible impacts on the ground. And we are opening a call for submissions for our youth, any youth-led project or campaign innovation globally to highlight just what youth are capable of regarding chemicals and waste. So if you're on this call and you're working on a campaign or a project, and it doesn't have to be tied to any funding, specific funding, it's open to anything. You are free to submit it, and we will try to include it in this youth pollution solution lab. And most importantly, on the 27th of April at the Geneva Environment Conference Center, which the BRS Secretariat has wonderfully allowed us to get a room there and host it, we will do a youth forum at the BRS where we'll have various speakers engaging from the BRS Secretariat to youth globally, and I believe some other funding agencies as well. So please do make note of this. I do believe we will make these slides available. I could be wrong about that, but I'm very happy to see the Chemical Review platform grow and continue our engagement with the BRS, Minamata, SPP, INC secretariats for a clean, healthy, and sustainable future for all youth globally. And this brings my presentation to the end. I will then pass it to my colleague Shannon, who will take over. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Joshua. And I'll be very brief here because you guys have stuck it out for quite a long time with us, and really appreciate you joining in on this briefing and you being so active with asking your questions. You know, we really wanted to do this somewhat towards the beginning of the year. Like we said, we have a big year ahead for chemicals, waste, and pollution negotiations in 2025, and we wanted to give all the youth in the constituency and maybe even some new faces, new members of the constituency, an opportunity to meet each of the secretariats of those key processes and be able to get an overview of what the year looks like ahead. So we were really happy to have you on this briefing today and excited to host more sessions like this throughout the year. In terms of what we have coming up next for preparatory sessions or preparatory virtual webinars focused distinctly on the BRS COPs, which is our first major negotiation process on the calendar that you heard from our speakers and earlier from Lizelle when she was sharing the timeline with you all. We have a series of preparatory briefings this weekend and into next week focused on different key issues that are addressed under the conventions, and that will be main focuses of the dialogues and the negotiations at the COPs later this month and into early May. So on the 18th of April, we have a youth preparatory meeting focused on the Basel Convention plastic amendments and how those fit in with the ongoing negotiations on the Plastics Treaty as well. On the 19th of April, we'll have a thematic session focused on persistent organic pollutants, which is covered by the Stockholm Convention, and an overview of what chemicals risk assessment looks like in the Rotterdam and Stockholm Conventions. And then on the 22nd of April, which is also Earth Day, we're going to have a session focused on e-waste under the BRS conventions. And then we have a series of regional preparatory meetings for youth virtually as well the following week, for Africa on the 23rd, for MENA and West Asia on the 24th, and for Asia Pacific on the 25th that are confirmed. So if you're not already signed up for our mailing list or on our membership form, please do so we can get these invitations out to you for these preparatory meetings. We'll also post the schedule, of course, online and on our social media, which I'll share with you what the links to our various communication channels are on the next slide, please. So you can see at the bottom of the slide, we have our email for any questions you have that maybe we weren't able to cover on the briefing, or if you have any questions about facilitating youth engagement in these various processes, getting accreditation for meetings, accrediting your youth-led organization as an observer, we'd be very happy to connect with you there on our email. We also have our link tree, you'll see as the second link on the bottom of the slide, where we post regular updates on upcoming meetings. Our membership forms are also linked there, as well as all of our social media. So that's a good one-stop shop to find all updates about the constituency. And then our social media is pretty consistent and easy to remember, thankfully. It's all at Chem Waste Youth. So you can find us on X, on Facebook, on Instagram, Blue Sky, Threads, all on that same handle, at Chem Waste Youth, where we also share regular updates with everyone there. And I'll leave you with some key takeaways that we heard from both our youth speakers and from our distinguished Secretariat representatives who were so kind to join us today. And those are: intergenerational collaboration is essential to implementing the chemicals and waste MEAs and policy frameworks. 2 is that youth, all of us here, are co-creators of pollution policy and action. And we definitely want to see more of that co-creation happening this year and following this session. And 3 is that chemicals and waste needs storytelling and a human face. And that we as youth, with our skills in communication, our skills in social media, our skills in reaching out to our communities in ways that no one else can, we're making those policy objectives more relatable and accessible. So thank you all for joining us today and joining on our journey to build stronger youth engagements in the chemicals and waste space globally, and look forward to engaging with you in the year ahead. That concludes our session for today. Thank you so much, everyone, for your active participation, and hope to see you all very soon.